Hey there, YouTube. It's me, Broken Terrain, and I've got a great minifig I'm creating out of dollar store toys and leftover Sprue bits. Come along, and I'll show you how I made it right after the drop. To start the video, I'm gonna show you what I began working with. I got this pack of Halloween skeletons from the Dollar General some years back. They're a little too big to use for scale on the table, but they make great bits and pieces to cut up. Then I've got some leftover sprues from some dryads I made with my son, and I'm going to use these spiky tree and antler bits. And then I've got a pack of dollar store horses. Of this pack, the two red ones are really good. They're 2 scale and they are a really good sculpt. I would recommend setting these aside and utilizing them for horses. I mean, you just gotta glue them to some chip and paint them up a little bit and they're perfect. Look at that. But the rest of these horses, they're a little too big or a little too goofy looking. So I'm gonna grab this white one here and chop its butt off. The craft knife wasn't working, so I'm gonna use my snips. Then I'll clean the haunch up with my X-Acto, and then I'm gonna search through my pack of skeletons and look for one that I feel kind of fits with what I'm trying to do. I find this fellow with the horn, the doot-to-the-dooter, and I think he's gonna be my huckleberry. I'm gonna cut his legs off at the pelvis there, and I'll cut his arms off as well because I really just want the torso and the skull. With the skeleton chosen, I'm gonna go back to the horse haunch here and just kind of trim it up and clean it up a little bit with the snip and set it up so that the pelvis kind of sits inside. A little hard to explain. You're just going to have to watch and see me messing around with it. And once I get it sitting where I like it, it's time for super glue and super glue accelerant. Well, I don't want this beast to have a human head, so I'm going to turn back to the white horse that I had cut up, and I'm going to cut the head and clean the back of the head up a little bit. And ultimately I decide I don't like those ears, and I snip those off as well. And then I kind of curve the back of the head so that I can glue it over the face of the skull. It creates a very long, elongated head, and ultimately it looks very creepy, which is exactly what I'm going for. Now I want this to look like a deer skull, or I'm using a horse, but the original idea was like a corrupted deer. So in order to look like a skull, I'm going to grab my little mini hand drill. I'm going to hand drill out the nostrils and hand drill out the eye sockets. And this is going to create more of a skull-like effect when I start to paint the figure. I thought it'd be easier to continue working on this thing if it was on a base. Nothing too crazy, a little piece of ripped cork glued to a fender washer, the haunches glued on top of the cork. Now I'm going to turn to my sprue bits, and the dryads had these really funky crown pieces, and you know how I love my Kitbash loincloths, so I end up using one of those as a kind of a hanging or a loincloth. And then the dryads have these wonderful looking gnarled tree limbs. I mean, they're perfect. They are absolutely perfect for this craft. So I'm just gonna glue those on to the edges of the skeletal torso. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the original idea was a corrupted deer, and there are some perfect bits on this sprue for some antlers. I love this one with the half human skeleton hanging in it. I mean, how terrifying is that? This beast comes ripping at you, and it's already got a skeletal remains impaled upon its antler. Another one of those crown pieces, and I just use these bits to hide a lot of the seams. I'm using this one on the top of the head to hide the horse head to skull transition. I'll put another one on the back, and that's going to hide that sloppy back seam with the haunches to the skeletal torso. I was really happy with the progress so far, but I felt like the figure just needed more bulk, a better silhouette. So I grabbed my peat moss, started ripping off chunks so that it looked like wild tendrils, maybe like where fur used to be, or leaves or branches, and turned into these wicked looking tendrils. I put some on top for the hair. This is going to hide the back of the skull. I put a couple pieces across the clavicles to hide the seams of the arms, and I put a bunch on the back to hide that really ugly tail. Overall, I was really happy with the result, and I took it outside and gave it a prime with first a black, and then I dusted the top with white. They call that a zenithal highlight. I'm not very good at it, but it looked really good when it was all done. And my wife said guts, put in some guts. So I went to my box of zombies, grabbed the guts, and glued them in. And she's right, as always. It was a fine addition. And then it was time to paint. I used my Army Painter paints. I believe that's a fur brown. I painted the haunches in the fur brown. Next, I used an oak brown and covered the branch-like areas. Those crowns I used to hide the seams, his arms and antlers as well. I also brushed a bit of those mossy tendrils. They ended up getting a lot of color from a lot of different sources. The first was the oak brown playing with the zenithal base coat. I used skeleton bone for the torso, and the parts of the skull and the skeleton trapped in one of the corrupted forest spirit's antlers. I went in with some red, painted up the guts, and added a little like a scarry tissue look where the limbs meet the torso, and try to imply kind of a ripped flesh around the skull. Then I go in with my dark tone wash and just hit the whole figure. At this point, it's completely come alive, and I am utterly thrilled with how it's turned out. But I want to do a few more details. So I get out my Grimoire Purple, and to insinuate this creature was created with some dark magic, I'm going to hit it in key spots with this magical purple color. First, I'm going to do the hooves midway up the haunches and legs. I'm going to do some of the fingertips, and then I'm going to randomly pick out some of those peat moss tendrils and brush those edges and tips with the purple. I'm going to throw a little blood effect on here too. I'm going to brush the guts and the surrounding area, and then I place a little of the blood on the fingertips and near those earlier areas that I wanted to look like kind of ripped and torn scar tissue, blending the many different pieces of this corrupted forest spirit together. To finish it off, I'm going to go in and dry brush some of the areas with that bone white, and then I'm going to white PVA and flock the base, and it's done. So in a little bit, I'm going to take it to the table, and we're going to continue the story of Tinley and the Shamrock Boys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. When we last left Tinley and the Shamrock Boys, they were at the ancient magical stones, who had agreed to heal their injured sorceress. But they've been followed. What's this? Ah, at last my chance to retrieve that crystal and put an end to that Tinley. Someone has invaded the sacred groves. The Four Seasons turn to see Natasha the demoness, and she's desecrated the sacred grove. Fear not, sisters. I shall take care of this. Winter leaps forward with incredible speed and is on Natasha in a second. You dare in our sacred grove? Leave now, and I won't destroy you. You've stepped right into my trap, you foolish thing. And now I'll corrupt you to my bidding. Dark tendrils of evil magic surround the downed forest animal and the guardian spirit, morphing it, corrupting it into something dark and sinister. Sister, no! Winter, by the gods! On later, my sisters. We must rally and protect the ancients. Destroy them, my creation, and bring me back the head of Tinley. As the corrupted forest spirit advances, the remaining 3 seasons rush to stop it. They would try to buy the ancients more time, but alas, it was futile. One by one, they fell to the corrupted forest spirit. Oh my God, Captain, them trees fell quick. We gotta get out of here. But Tinley's not healed yet. What are we gonna do? But as the Shamrock Boys turned, prepared to make one last valiant stand against this demonic foe, the spell ended, Tinley's eyes opened, and the stones spoke. We have done everything that we can. Now we must flee, for we will be swallowed in darkness forever. And as the last of the ancients faded from the grove, the captain came to a horrible realization. Tinley's too weak to fight, boys. I think we're gonna have to run. You're gonna have to keep watching my videos to find out what happens next. Did you like this video? Did you like the craft? Smash that like button. Leave me a comment if there's something you want to say. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, like each other, love each other, and craft on.